Hello, I'm William Gallagher and this is the 58 Keys writing workshop set of videos. I tell you I happen to write something and then you, please, disagree with me in the comments. You're a writer. Of course you disagree with me. I mean, otherwise what's the point? Just me gassing on when we could be having a writer-to-writer conversation and possibly putting off writing for a little bit. This time, it's my job. It's what I do. I love that line. It used to be so common in really bad 1970s TV shows, and it got into my head so much it became a catchphrase. I used to use it in newsrooms, and God, did I irritate people with it. But I want to talk to you today about how, in crude ways and not so crude ways, the jobs you give your character are really useful in writing. And really, I want to tell you this because there's a joke I love. I was going to say, stop me if you know this one. Well, fast forward if you know this one. Okay, but the joke might be putting it a bit strongly, but still. Three men are on a train going from England into Scotland. It's the first time they've ever been into Scotland, and the train's about to cross the border, and so they're looking out the window. Scotland, nice place. The three men are, there's a writer, a scientist, and a mathematician. Cross over the border, and over the fields and things. And, oh, look, says the writer, there's a sheep and it's black. All the sheep in Scotland are black. No, says the scientist. In Scotland, there is at least one sheep that is black. No, says the mathematician. In Scotland, there is at least one sheep, at least one side of which is black. I don't know why that tickles me so much, but this is what I want to talk to you about today. The precision of the mathematician, let's go with artistry of the writer, scientist in the middle bit. Their characters are revealed through what they say about something, but their characters are shaped by their jobs. Now, I mean, a lot of people end up in jobs that they don't like. Of course, I'm aware of that. But there's an issue that I think certain jobs appeal to certain types of people, but also certain jobs shape certain people in certain ways. I mean, let's do the crude stuff first. If you are an accountant, you probably better be detail oriented, okay? And you probably can't afford to be too fast to slapdash about things. You're probably considered, okay? And when you're doing that 8 hours a day, every day of the week, either you are that way or you have to become that way, I think. Or what would be the opposite? Somebody who works in radio, radio producer, radio presenter, they probably have to be very fast thinking. They have to be responsive to things going on right now. They probably can't, or at least probably don't enjoy doing long-term planning and things. Okay. We can use that in our descriptions of characters. Just by saying what somebody does, we paint a picture. And it's probably stereotypical, but it's useful. If I told you that my lead character was a fireman, I think you probably have a picture straight away of them. You're expecting someone strong for a start. If I told you my lead character is a woman nurse, you probably think, well, even stronger. You know, there are certain, yes, stereotypical tropes about these characters. But more than what we think of them as readers, I'm really interested in what they think and how they perceive the world around and how we can use that. I seem to be doing crude and silly examples today, but for some reason, and who knows why, my story requires there to be a photograph of, I should think this through, lilies. Your lead character happens to be a florist, and he or she recognises from the photograph that it can't be where it was supposed to be taken. I've said lilies. The photograph is supposed to be of somebody with a bunch of lilies in their garden in Spain, Barcelona, somewhere more specific than that, in February, and the florist knows that's not possible. That's the kind of, well, it sounds like detective stuff now, isn't it? But their awareness of certain details that I wouldn't have, I think, is useful for conveying a type of character. It's useful for conveying a type of plot. I think it's potentially also interesting for it. I love things I don't know and stuff like that. So you could use that as a plot. But I also think attitudes come with it. Excuse me. For some reason, I'm drawn back to Jane Austen, and I'm thinking of characters who get obsessed with hunting. For example, they see everything through terms of the hunt, and what's the description? Someone's asked to describe a man. I've blanked on which book it is now, and I think I've said this before in a previous video. All he can think of to describe this other man is that he has a great hunting dog and he shoots well, or something. It is telling us about this other man character, but really telling us so much about that first one. And also in that case, how clever is Jane Austen? She's telling us bits about both characters, and she's making us want more. It's like frustrating us for it, all through how this character thinks. And I argue that how a character thinks is shaped by what they do, or they come to what they do because of the way they already are. And I just want us to exploit that. Let me give you one quote and one example. Can I do that? Because I just love this. One of my favourite films is Grosse Pointe Blank. And in it, a character, actually I wrote this down to make sure I get it right. One character says, "I don't think necessarily what a person does for a living reflects who he is." But the character who says it is a hitman. And so, I don't know why that tickles me so much. But throughout the film, even when he's not hitting people, not shooting people, there's an alertness to him. There's a moment when he will not sit with his back to an open door. So it's learned behaviour from what he does for a living, self-protection and stuff, that I don't think there's any other job where you would necessarily do that. Actually, there is a job when you would do the opposite. I interviewed an actor once, a very famous actor, who told me that he always makes a point of, when he's in a restaurant with friends, he sits with his back to the rest of the room because it stops people noticing him and stuff. Okay. So learned behaviour from an actor, from a hitman. What a combination. I mustn't tell that guy I made that connection. And then there's also this. This is like another crude thing, but it's like a writing exercise that I would use sometimes with young writing groups in the way to building up to something. And I'll do this fast because you'll get it straight away. I ask you to make lists, really. 10, I say 10 jobs, but I'm thinking not put out the bins. I'm thinking fireman, nurse, doctor, psychiatrist, teacher. I think you know what jobs are. 10 of those, or sometimes I might even go for 20. It depends how the group's going. Then a second thing, slightly more esoteric, it's something anybody could desire. So love, friendship, food, chocolate, football, I suppose. Amazing. You get that idea. Something that they could, more than just quite like the idea of, but actively want, actively crave, desire. Give me as many of those. That's usually quite hard to do. You run out really quickly. Respect comes in there somewhere, I suppose. Things like that. And then the last thing is, the easier one I think, name a place. In that case, I do mean things like a country. I do mean things like a kitchen or city, something geo-fixed, something, a location of some description. Could be broad, could be incredibly specific. And then what I want them to do is to, well, I tend to do some trickery about this. I go to pick random numbers, and so a list of 10s and 20s is so, okay, so right, you are writing a story about job number 3, wants desire item number 11 and goes to place number 7 to get it, and some kind of rotation like that. It's actually really hard to keep in track of your mind of who's doing what, and I know some of them change it, and I love that they change it. Yeah, job number 4 seems easier. Great, do it. But those 3 parts, it does make up a story, and you'd be astonished how rich those stories can be. And I like that. I love that. I'm not always very keen on prompts, but this one just seems to enable certain things, and especially when you then go to the next stage, which is change the job. Everything else is the same, but it's a different job number, because even though the plot is exactly the same, the job and the person who does that job and their character colours everything else. It enables certain things, it disables certain things. There are things people you can believe they could do or think of in certain circumstances, but not in others. I just think that's delicious for it. And like any other prompt, it's a trick, but the idea is to get you thinking about jobs and characters. And that's exactly what's been on my mind to talk to you about today. Now, that's all I want to talk to you about. So thank you very much for watching. Please, is this something you can disagree with me in the comments about, or can you just tell me more? Either way, the whole point of this is you and me, writer to writer, having a chat. I should have got a cup of tea. We could be talking properly. Let's do that. I'll put the kettle on. You start commenting, okay? And in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourself, hey? With or without tea? With tea. Write more too. And I'll see you soon.